you very much for the presentation. I think it was worth hearing what she has experienced in because of policy engagement and resources. Thank you very much. So I may now welcome Lilian to chair the panel discussion session. And so this is my final. Thank you very much for your participation.
I need to be sure that I'm saying a proper good morning when it's a good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lilian. I work with the African Academy of Sciences, and I'm privileged to host this panel discussion. How much time do we have, Daniel, to break?
We have 40 minutes.
Okay, so that's ample time. Welcome, panelists. And welcome, fellows. This is your opportunity to engage, ask, demand as much as possible. We do not have Dr. Henry Mwedesa, unfortunately, but we are happy to have Dr. Okello, who has brought a global perspective to the discussion. Working for WHO is fundamental because WHO usually gives guidance to national programs, ministries of health, in terms of health, on how to proceed with different health issues. And very happy to hear some of the discussions from the previous presenters, their personal experiences in engaging with policy. I know that when all of us are busy in our labs or busy doing our research, we tend to only think about policy engagement at the tail end. When you are writing your findings and you are looking to then begin making your findings relevant. But this is your opportunity to ask, and I would like to invite any of us to ask questions that you feel you would like answers to. Policy engagement is a very, like you said, delicate landscape. Sometimes you do not know how to make an entry. I remember, I think I was taking a bit of notes when you're presenting Dr. Okello. And for me, some of the things that tweaked my interest is timely issues that government is grappling with. One of the things I would like to ask, or the questions I would like to ask and preempt, is are we all in this room? Is our research addressing timely issues? I don't know what that would be. Take account of different audiences. That is another aspect that you touched on that interested me. Informal meetings. I think one of the key issues that I've learned is that if you want to actually cause change, the most impactful discussions happen outside the boardroom.
Outside the boardroom.
Yes. So if you want to understand how that should happen, please feel free. And then not purely academic research is critical in terms of policy engagement. So with that, I would like to open the floor, and I will take the first 5 questions. And please, when you raise your hand, tell us who your question is addressed to, so that the person can be able to take notes. I would like to start with the hand right there. Sorry, I do not remember your name.
My name is Kakoza Angelina.
Can you all hear her, or would you like me to pass over the microphone? Because we only have one microphone. Is this working anyway? Is it working? Okay.
I'm Kakoza Angelina, postdoc fellow with Thrive 2. Please, Madam Chair, I have 3 questions. The first question is addressed to Dr. Mwaka. Thank you very much for a very inspiring presentation on the school bags. And as you presented, it just showed us what happens. Many of the time we do research, and by accident, the results come out to be very important. Based on what you conceptualized, based on the results, you found out that the school bags were causing a challenge to these children. I'm interested to know, this was 17 years ago. What have you done in terms of follow-up of an issue which is of great importance to our children? Do you have any plans, irrespective of failing to get the NIH grant, regarding the way forward for these children? The next question is to Dr. Amongin. Thank you very much for the impressive way that you engaged with the members of parliament. That was very brave of you. And I'm just concerned that the people involved, the adolescents themselves, what are your plans in terms of engaging them? They are the ones who are getting the repeat abortions. They are the ones who are getting this fertility issue. What exactly, how are you going to engage with them, and what are your plans? The third question is to Dr. Okello. You're my former teacher, and thank you for the presentation. You gave a really good life experience. In terms of the media, I've had nightmares with them. You tell them information, and then they write something else altogether. And you find in the newspaper that what has been portrayed is completely different. How do you deal with such issues? Then the informal meetings. Yes, it is true. Sometimes over a glass of wine or beer. Who funds these informal meetings? How best do we engineer them to make it not look like I've come out to get information, I want to give you my information, but to make it, what are the sort of ways, tips that you can give us to have these informal meetings? Thank you very much.
So those are how many questions? 3? Okay. I'll give an allowance of 2 additional questions. I will take one from Abraham, and then the next to the gentleman right behind.
Thank you very much, colleagues, for these insightful presentations. My question, I would like to address it to Dr. Mwaka. What are the challenges that you face in terms of your research, and have you maybe published anything on that? My other question, I would like to tie to Dr. Okem and the last Professor Hoppers about knowledge translation and knowledge systems. World Health Organization somehow, I'm not sure if it recognizes knowledge systems, because they're quite important in terms of articulating health and solving health problems in African countries and developing countries.
So we'll take this last question, get responses, and then take the next round.
All right, thank you. My name is Emmy Okello, Frank Postdoctoral Fellow. My first question goes to Dr. Mwaka. Thank you for the very excellent case sharing. You seem to have worked with the education department at the KCCA. I didn't see you mention what the Minister of Education did or how they got involved. Did they take it beyond Kampala, for example? But they felt like they needed to own this evidence that you gave. I know the parents and the schools got excited because this was talking about children, but that's the ministry only. Secondly, to Dr. Okello, thanks for a very excellent presentation. So the issue of priority, the ministry, for example, of health, we have its own priorities, maternal health, malaria, TB, HIV. You and I who work in the NCD space, may not be the priority at the time. For example, this happened in Uganda, and then a few years ago, suddenly we had this NCD's epidemic because the ministry didn't pay attention to that. So how do you, if you are researching that space, how do you get your ideas across? How do you get them to then get interested? And then finally, Daniel, at some point, just to talk, the CPE that we're talking about, I think is really critical, but how do we integrate all the components? Communication component, dissemination and exploitation in the lifetime of the project. So so that you don't have to use it as a or develop it as a separate project. Maybe discuss the way that later.
Okay, so I'll touch a bit on that during my upcoming presentation. So we'll take the responses, and then we'll take the next round.
Okay, thanks very much. It's nice meeting you again. Now, Angelina's question on the follow-up of, with the children. At the time, we had a very active young man in the Office of Innovation and Knowledge Translation. And actually, we are really working together, okay? And he was really driving this. Now, sadly, I did not follow up. But I managed to address parents and children as teachers, for example, at Uganda Road. Then one of the schools in Bali, Northwood Primary School, I also, gave an address to the parents, teachers, during the PTA meeting. Yeah, and that's the farthest I went. Because remember, I had these things need funding, okay? And actually, I did not have funding. Remember, I had only $3,000 that took me to all the schools, then the children. And of course, with that Office of Knowledge Translation, yeah, when Huntington was still around, but of course, eventually he left the country and, kind of everything stalled because he was really leading this. Then the Minister of Education, we tried to engage the Minister of Education, yes. We went, met a few people, but that was it. Nobody seemed to be interested in this. And I think this is a problem. Okay? Because we tried getting funding, of course the NIH failed, and I mean as a researcher, other things take over. If you feel like, there is a line of research, that's not really moving forward, and if you have other things to do, you move on. Because I moved on, and actually right now, most of my work is in ethics. Because eventually I got interested in ethics, and ethics took over. So I forgot all about the children. But they are still at the back of my mind. And I believe maybe next year or so we are putting, we are looking at something along the line of implementation science, okay, to see what we can do. Thank you very much. Anything else? Challenges to research? Of course, when you have a small budget, you have challenges. And then at the time, I had to kind of assemble a research team. Okay? Because remember, things that you need to, if you have a research team, you have to motivate people. If you have to travel up country, you have to travel to Luero, you have to travel to Mbale, But good enough, I had members who were interested in anything, but we really wanted to move forward. And our main challenge was some of the schools initially did not understand what we really, okay? Especially in the city. Of course, I won't mention names. There is a city school whereby almost 90% of the children were carrying baby bags, okay? And we had to sit down with the head teacher. Then, of course, that same school had its own, I'll call them investors, the directors. And I'm very proud that the very next year, they had to make lockers for those children. Because, I told them, look, people are paying a lot of money for it, but you're not taking care of the children, 90%. So, basically the challenges were on my side, but then again, the side of the schools. Thank you very much.
Wow, may I start? I like the questions that have been posed. I think you understood my message very well. And let me try to respond to them. Starting with the media. How many people are from the media here? Anybody? Please. Please stand up. You had the accusations about the media. You should really be answering this question. Stand up again. Media people. There you are. I want you to comment on this question. The question of We have good information to you and you distort them. You give a different message. Please sit down. But I will try to answer. In my view, the media has three basic functions. Maybe four. You inform, you educate, you entertain people, but also the media is a forum for public debate. If you want to debate an issue which is not well understood, put it in the media. You will get reactions. Reactions like the one you just said here. In my experience, when I was at WR, the media would come to me for information. How should we write this message? How should we craft it? I was always in the media. Not fighting the media. I've also learned that the media can elevate you to the highest level you want if you play it well. But the media can also kill you with their pen. They can make you lose votes if you are a politician. If they don't like you, if you insult them, the pen can kill you. So my advice is, please befriend the media. Engage them, talk to them, let them know what you are thinking. If they understand you, probably they will write what you want them to write. If they don't understand, they are allowed to distort what you're saying. So the media, please, when I sit down, I want you to respond to this lady. A very provocative issue that the media distorts my message and write whatever they think is right. But let me also tell you, the media is also a political system. The editor-in-chief decides what goes in their paper. And if what you are saying is not politically correct, they will change it to their team. The editor-in-chief will change what you are saying. Please, we should use the media. They are the voice of the people. They communicate things to people. Educate people, they entertain us, but also it's a forum for public debate. What they put out is not necessarily factual. They are inciting a response from the public. And people write back in a big way. So that's a very important question. And to research people who sit in the lab, who sit in hospitals, who sit in clinics, this may not mean much to you. But it is important that what you're doing out there reach out to the public. And your way of reaching the public is not necessarily through the New England Journal of Medicine. It's through the media you have locally here, the nation newspaper. So, informal meetings with policymakers. Another interesting question from you. How do you do it? How much money you need? You may be so small like this young man here. How do I get to the Prime Minister of Uganda and tell him about this? Informal meetings don't cost money, but you need to invest in it yourself. You need to create time. You need to find a way of reaching the right audience. You may not reach there yourself. You could go through Nelson here. Say, Nelson, how can I meet the Director of Family Health? I have issues I want to discuss with them, but meeting is not just in the boardrooms. That's my point. You need to find a way of getting your message to people over lunch or to their village in Tungam, if you're from there, and say, well, I'm from Mbarara University, you know, this thing is bothering me. What do you think? Find different ways of doing it. But it is important that your message gets across, not necessarily in a board meeting, outside the board meeting, in a golf club. I play golf, and I meet policymakers in golf clubs. And we talk about things even before I start writing about it. If you play netball, maybe our MPs also play netball. Go to the netball court and work with them. A very, very philosophical question was posed here. How do you get your ideas across and make the policymakers put it as a priority? Dr. Kello there, NCD is 20 years ago, 30 years ago when I left this country, if you hear of a death, it was probably HIV/AIDS related. 30 years, 20 years ago. Today, that's not the case. HIV/AIDS has become a chronic illness. People are dying of road traffic injuries, people are dying of cancers, cardiovascular accidents, and so on. NCDs are now the thing. It's now the talk of villages. People are talking about it. The media may not be writing about this yet. Maybe they don't understand what NCDs are. But the common causes of death now are non-communicable diseases. It is an epidemic that is growing by the day. Are policymakers aware of this? Probably not. Probably they are still hung on to global fund, what I call the ATM machine. AIDS, TB, and malaria is an ATM indeed. It has brought in a lot of money, but goodness me, there are other things which are also killing our people that we should be talking about. And I think the answer to your question is, start with informal discussions. Engage the media. Let the media write about NCDs. What I've also learned is, when the media writes about it, the policymaker will think about it. They'll say, wow, where is this coming from? Talk to the media people. Let them write about heart diseases consistently. The policymaker will hear about it. Really, public pressure makes a difference. If the public talks about it, if the public makes an outcry, the policymaker will pay attention. So that would be my answer to you. Then somebody asked about WHO is a knowledge-based institution. Why are you making policies without knowledge? I can tell you from my experience, all the policy advice that WHO gives out are based on rigorous scientific review. They are not just look. So if you want, I can give you evidence that all the policy advice we give to governments are based on research. The research may not be from Uganda or Kenya. It's a global institution. And the research may have been done in India or somewhere else. But WHO is truly a knowledge-based institution. I'm not working for WHO anymore, so I have no conflict of interest. Thank you very much.
Question that shows my topic is on adolescent fertility. Why am I not sharing information on adolescents? I'm actually in the process of engaging with adolescents directly, both in and out of school. At the out of school, I'm working with Ministry of Health and UNFPA currently to do community outreaches for adolescents in West Nile and northern parts of the country. That is actually an ongoing activity. And then for in school, I have a school I've adopted, and we're in the process of trying to reach out to adolescents about the issues. I've forgotten what the cracks of your question to me was.
Okay.
Yes, the cracks.
Okay, let me rephrase the question. I was actually asking that the fact that there are different knowledge systems across the globe, does the World Health Organization recognize that when it comes to health systems, when you come to Africa, we have our own.
There are a number of UN agencies, like ILO, like World Health,
WHO.
yes, like WIPO, like UNESCO. They have already recognized and put it at the it is cross-cutting. It is cross-cutting. You can't initiate a department of indigenous knowledge system. No, it is cross-cutting across the globe, across scientific fields, across disciplines. So it would be good if Uganda could take it up now from the scientific community to the academics, to the policy makers. Really, this is the one gap that is missing to let Uganda almost come up is not really a knowledge producer, but is the top of knowledge producing. I tell you, South Africa has taken it now. It doesn't, it doesn't appeal to other countries, but South Africa is at the top now. And I've seen what Uganda has done. What is missing is our knowledge systems coming up in public using specific concepts, not just running into the past. Oh, we used to do this. No, bringing it out into the public in a dialogue, in a strategic dialogue of knowledge systems.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? Okay, I have Esther here. I have another hand here. Please. One hand there. All ladies, fantastic. And as Esther begins, I think I would like to ask you to begin by responding to her question. Because you're media.
Since media?
Yes.
All right.
So begin by responding to her question.
Thank you very much. Thank you. My name is Esther Nakasi. I'm a science journalist and I am the president of the Health Journalists Network in Uganda, which brings together journalists that write about health. I will respond to her question in our time because I have time. I think makes sense. Yeah. But my own question goes to Dr. Maka. What sort of policy do you want or would you have expected from your research beyond schools putting up lockers and stuff like that? Is there any solid policy you have expected? And then secondly, to the panel, I don't know who would really answer this one, but have you had instances where you have fed into research, into a policy, and then that policy is reversed because of another research that sort of overrides your research?
Thank you very much. My name is Bagasha Peace. I am a PhD fellow with RISE in Uganda, here in University. My question is for Dr. Okello and Professor Hooper. So, in March of this year, I was privileged to attend a debate in Parliament. I was sitting in the gallery and watching as the parliamentarians were debating. So what they were debating was we put for them a motion asking them to provide support for sustainable health, kidney disease health, and we asked if they could include 7.6 billion into the healthcare budget. So I watched as almost 8 or 10 parliamentarians stood and debated, and each of them did not give a single bit of evidence for their debates, but they all unanimously supported the motion to include this money into the budget. And as each of them stood, they were all talking about personal stories, giving personal stories of how they had a patient who had kidney disease and they had really struggled and suffered and the outcome was always bad.
So it seems to me that emotions are really what drives high policy decisions at this level, because it's a lot of money. And after that, the second thing is evidence. So how do we get around this as people who are creating evidence? What is your opinion on emotions versus evidence? And how do we present our data in such a way that it will drive emotion?
Okay, I'll request that we kind of become succinct, brief, because we have very limited time. Sorry, I think I prefer this. And I'm being told we have East Africans in the room, and we are only getting questions from Ugandans. So I would like to invite the East Africans to also please, or anybody else outside Uganda to also please ask. But let's keep our questions brief and to the point.
Okay, please, I'm a tribe fellow of Kenya. Maybe you are requesting.
Awesome.
So my first question goes to Dr. Kello. We talked about collaboration, and as an upcoming researcher, I may want to collaborate with those institutions with big names. But the challenge you encounter is that when you try to collaborate with them, they'll also want to take over the idea. So how do you handle that as an upcoming person? And then my second question goes to Prof. Hoppers on knowledge production. We have a traditional medicine policy in Kenya, but it hasn't made much impact. Mainly because the concept is still somehow held in secrecy. So you find that the people who are practicing it are not willing to share the information. And those who are using those drugs are also not willing to reveal. So the question is, how do you get out of this so that we're at the same level as China or South Africa?
Thank you very much. I'm Imelda Namagembe, one of the PhD fellows from Akere, from obstetrics and gynecology. I'd like to thank the panelists. Maybe this particular one goes to, one of them goes to Dr. Mwaka. Dr. Mwaka, thank you so much for that research. When you mentioned the heavy bag, what exactly, to be precise, are you considering as heavy? So that maybe as the media people are communicating and they say a bag of this weight is considered to be heavy, and that message, a triple effect can happen even with little money, and they continue communicating and say, please, this bag, that kind of thing. And then the other thing I wanted to find out from your research, was there, based on the number of schools that you picked, was there a difference in those, the kind of bags between the say the public and the affluent schools, the private schools? Could it be that maybe issues related to the diet and exercises? I don't know. Probably it can be, or we can pick up some information which can keep on gradually communicating to our people as we wait for the bigger budget, which may not come up there and then. And then the other one goes to Dr. David Okello. You mentioned that media issues of information, education, and public, but maybe the other aspect is the dollar side business. They want to make money. What makes news is what makes money. So at times maybe they how do we tease out so that they endeavor to make news, because what makes news will sell out very fast. None of them will like to take a pile of newspapers. So we need to see how do we engage them further to see that they can be able to put a phrase but not distort information. So we need to dialogue further with these people, our friends of media, so that we communicate better. And then the other thing I'm struggling with, although the policymakers, they say that things which are defined and focused are not good for, don't make a lot of impact. But at the same time, in research, we encourage that be smart. Because if something is smart, specific, measurable, those kind of things, and timeliness, and then they say that that one does not make a lot of sense to them when it's so focused. So how could it be that maybe we need to raise more awareness, and then later on and see how we can, maybe further engagement probably can throw a bit of more light on that. Thank you.
I think we can start responding to the questions. We have only 14 minutes left.
Okay, thanks very much. The first question was from the journalist. I mean, what policy would I have liked? Now, I'm not so good at some of these policies, but I don't know whether you'll guide me. Is there any policy on child protection at school premises? Because the thing is, children need to be protected at school. At home, they have the protection of their parents because they care. But at school, do the schools really care about the welfare of these children? Of course, in that policy, there should be things like, for example, for boarding schools, decent accommodation, sanitation, etc. Then, of course, corporal punishment. But I would like in that policy, especially for the day scholars, you find that many of these kids move for long distances. Actually, I don't know, I have, there's a lot of, in the results we found out a lot of things. And some of these children actually were walking on average more than 2 kilometers with a heavy bag. Now, I would love to set limits. In some countries, actually, it's policy, anything above 10 kilograms per body weight, somebody can sweep you, okay? That should come up. Now, that brings me to Imelda's question. Ideally, if a child is 30 kilograms, they shouldn't carry a bag more than 3 kilograms. Okay, the recommended weight is 10, 10% of the body weight of, even for adults. Anything above that, not acceptable. Now, you asked me about the type of bags. You find that there was actually a huge difference between the upcountry schools and the city schools. Now, the recommended bag is a backpack, okay, with 2 shoulder straps, but it should also, the size of the bag should be proportional to the physical structure of the child. But you find that because these children have to carry, many books, they are carrying disproportionately larger bags. Because we also looked at the contents of these bags, mathematical sets, water bottles, dictionaries, Bibles, you see. Then some of them actually had to carry, like sportswear, football boots. There are quite a lot of things, which I believe are quite useless. Now, if somebody has to carry football boots every day, why don't you give them some, at school, maybe sports, you understand? So, of course, some of these things, as a researcher, there is a limit, okay? Nobody asked this, but I think it's very, very important. For example, for a university or an institution to have an office of innovation and knowledge translation. I'll ask this to my mentor, Professor Sewakabo. You established that office, but that office is now completely silent. What's going on? Because I believe that was a very good start. A lot of research is coming in, but I don't know whether we are making any impact. Thanks very much.
All right, let me also try to jump into some of your ideas. First, decision making driven by emotion. I agree. You should all know that not all decisions are evidence-based. A lot of times they are driven by personal experience. This is how I used to do it. It worked then, it must work now. But also more importantly, driven by politics. Politics. And indeed, many times, you may think all policymakers understand what you mean by evidence. Not all of them do. Not all of them do. And it's your work to really educate them to understand the value of evidence. When they have emotion, when they have political pressure, combined with evidence, it's usually a stronger argument. They usually sell it better if they also put your evidence on top of their argument. But the biggest challenge is many times the decision maker is also green about what you call evidence. So we need to find a way of educating them, of getting them to understand the process of getting policy information and so on. But you're right, the issue of emotion is the one that drives Parliament most of the time, you know, because somebody is eloquently speaking in Parliament, they sway the whole thinking of Parliament. So it's not necessarily about, evidence. Then somebody said, oh, if I collaborate with some people, they will steal my ideas. This is a real worry for researchers, but you should not fear. I think collaboration usually helps, but you should also know that sometimes people will pick your ideas and run with it, and they will do it better than you. I went to a country, our neighbor here, please don't quote me, the media is here. We have beautiful policies here in Uganda, health policies and so on. Most of them are not implemented. But our neighbor came here, picked it, and they're implementing them and running with them. Don't ask me which neighbor. Certainly not Kenya. I was WR in Kenya, please, and I never saw anything from Uganda in Kenya. But other neighbors have picked our ideas, and they're running with it. Will you accuse them of stealing? I don't know. Now, another one. Be smart. If you're being taught to be smart in order to produce good results, I also agree. I'm not saying you should not be smart. What I'm saying is try to get the policymakers to know what you want. Also, you should also know what they want now. Because many times we do research just to make a publication, just to write a thesis. Yes, that's your immediate concern. You want to get your PhD, you want to get your degree, but you may not be thinking about how will I influence the policy decisions of this country. And many times, policy research may not be the same as academic research. Academic research, you're preoccupied with getting your qualification, but the policymakers have decisions to make every day, and sometimes your supervisors will help you if you want to influence policy people and do research that link to policy decision making. They are slightly different. Academic research and policy decision making research is based on things in the field. By the way, incidentally, not every research should lead to policy change. You should know that research will lead to policy change, but also could be a change of action. Action in a word, you want to change treatment from penicillin to something else. That's an action which may not necessarily be policy, but also could be change of practice. I used to call it PAP, research leading to PAP. Policy change, action change, or practice change. Don't get confused about all research must lead to policy. Not necessarily. Policy is perhaps a global thing, high level and so on, but your action could be at a local level. So be aware of that. New evidence could actually change what you knew yesterday. That's also true. What we know now, down the line, if there's new evidence, could reverse what we are doing now. That's a fact that researchers should know. And that's why we do research, to improve on how we're doing things. I think that's all I've picked from your questions. Thank you.
Will be brief. The science system should take the lead, actually. You should take the lead in espousing the transdisciplinary nature of science, not natural science alone. Link it with the social sciences, and you will get depth in your analysis like you have never seen before. Science is a transsexual, a cross sectional domain. Take it as a livelihood imperative. Take it as an ethical challenge. Take it as a responsibility to society. You get me? Then you deepen your knowledge. By anchoring it in this way, you deepen your own sense of what you do.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I'm not taking any more questions. We're already running out of time by 5 or 7 minutes. So if you have any questions, I would like to invite you to meet any of these panelists during tea break, lunch break, and engage further. But I hope we have a rapporteur. So just to recap, some of the key messages I've had from this panel discussion is that in policy engagement, we need to be mindful of certain things. The politics, the role of media, public outcry, personal experiences, emotions, and above all, to know how to use evidence to navigate all these issues if we need to have impact of our research outcomes. So thank you very much, and I wish you a nice break.